Frank Sinatra, the charismatic leader of the Rat Pack, seemed like an indispensable part of the group, yet he was often the most superfluous member. Unlike the other big names, Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., Dean Martin, and Joey Bishop, Sinatra didn't have a knack for performing in nightclubs. His real power lay in his connections to the Kennedy family, a fact that would soon create major rifts within the group. In the early 1960s, the Kennedys were at the height of their power. President John F. Kennedy and his brother, Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, were embroiled in a major investigation into organized crime. This investigation threatened to expose some embarrassing ties. It turned out that Frank Sinatra and mob boss Sam Giancana were not just acquaintances but had a more intimate connection, a woman, a stunning LA beauty named Judith Campbell, who was a shared girlfriend. This connection put Sinatra in an uncomfortable position as the Kennedy administration began to distance itself from Sinatra and, by extension, the Rat Pack. Despite these challenges, Sinatra was still eager to host his friends. When President Kennedy planned a visit to the West Coast in March 1962, Sinatra was thrilled. He prepared extensively for the president's one-night stay at his Palm Springs house, even expanding the guest bungalow and adding a heliport. However, just days before the trip, Kennedy's advisors convinced him that staying with Sinatra would be bad for the president's image. The visit was abruptly canceled and Bing Crosby, a Republican, was chosen as the new host instead. Sinatra was furious when Lawford, the Rat Pack's unofficial liaison, broke the news. Sinatra first tried to reach out to Bobby Kennedy, hoping to reverse the decision. When that failed, he called Lawford back and lost his temper. Frank was livid, Lawford recalled. Sinatra's outburst was followed by a violent rampage, smashing Kennedy photos and tearing up Lawford's clothes. Sinatra blamed Lawford for the bad news and cut him off completely. This incident was just the beginning of Sinatra's troubles. Joey Bishop, another Rat Pack member, faced his own set of issues. After being cast in the 1963 movie Robin and the Seven Hoods, Bishop was dropped from the project following a fight with Sinatra. The mobster's influence was strong, and for a year he and Bishop spoke no more. With Bishop out, the Rat Pack's core shrank to its three main members, Sinatra, Dean Martin, and Sammy Davis Jr. They reunited in November 1962 at the Villa Venice, a luxurious hotel in the Chicago suburbs owned by mob figure Sam Giancana. This was the first time since the original Summit shows that the trio performed together. In January 1963, they brought their act back to Las Vegas, this time at the Sands Casino. Their performances were recorded for an album, The Rat Pack Live at the Sands, which showcased their matured act. Dean Martin opened with his signature drunk routine, blending humor and singing. Sinatra followed with several songs, while Martin returned to taunt Sammy, who retaliated with his own comebacks. Despite some juvenile jokes and racist humor, the musical side of the act shone, especially in their duets. Sinatra and Martin's rendition of songs from Guys and Dolls was particularly impressive, highlighting their unique musical chemistry. However, Sinatra's personal troubles continued to mount. In September 1963, he faced a state investigation into the Cal Neva Lodge, a Lake Tahoe resort he had invested in. The focus was on a visit by Sam Giancana, whose presence violated Nevada's gambling laws. Sinatra tried to downplay his knowledge of the situation but was confronted by Ed Olson, the chairman of the Nevada Gaming Control Board. Their conversation turned hostile, with Sinatra threatening never to meet with Olson again. "You just try and find me," Sinatra growled. "And if you do, you can look for a big, fat fucking surprise." The tension between Sinatra and the authorities was palpable, threatening to overshadow his legacy as one half of the legendary Rat Pack. In 1963, Frank Sinatra's world took a drastic turn, starting with a major conflict with the law. On September 11th, a man named Olson accused Sinatra of breaking rules set by the Gaming Control Board. This board was in charge of making sure casino owners followed the law. Olsen said Sinatra was hanging out with a known troublemaker, Gincana, at a casino called Cal Neva. Sinatra had 2 weeks to explain himself, or his gambling license would be taken away. This was big news in Las Vegas. Some people, like the editor of the Las Vegas Sun, Hank Greenspun, stood by Sinatra. They thought it would be unfair to punish him for helping the city. Even President Kennedy, who was in town to speak, tried to help Sinatra by talking to the governor, but Sinatra chose to take a different path. He decided to sell his part in the casino, a move that was very public and embarrassing for him. A short while later, Sinatra faced another challenge. He was at the Sands Hotel when he ran into Sammy Davis Jr. Sinatra had expected a tough talk with Sinatra's friend, but Davis surprised him. Davis said, "That little son of a bitch, he's needed this for years." Davis had worked with Sinatra for 16 years and was finally standing up to him. This showed how much respect, or maybe fear, other celebrities had for Sinatra. Just a month after this, Sinatra's world was shaken again. On November 22, 1963, President Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas. Sinatra and his group were working on a movie when they heard the news. They stopped work for a bit to process what had happened. After finishing their scene, Sinatra went to Palm Springs to watch the events unfold on TV. The assassination deeply affected Sinatra, especially since he had close ties to the Kennedy family. He couldn't even attend the funeral, which was a big hurt for him. A few weeks later, another crisis hit Sinatra's family. His son Frank Jr., who was trying to start his music career, was kidnapped in Lake Tahoe. The kidnappers asked for a ransom of $240,000. Sinatra paid it, and thankfully his son was safe. The kidnap attempt, though eventually proven to be a misguided attempt for publicity, still shook Sinatra's family. Despite this, Sinatra returned to public life, giving a performance at the Sands that got a standing ovation. However, the joy was short-lived. Rumors spread that the kidnapping was a publicity stunt, which showed how questionable Sinatra's reputation had become. By 1964, the Rat Pack, Sinatra's group of celebrity friends, was losing its shine. President Kennedy was gone, and the Beatles had arrived, bringing a new wave of music and culture. The Rat Pack tried to keep going, but it was clear they were out of touch. In 1965, they did one last big show together, but it was clear the era was ending. Despite these challenges, Sinatra bounced back. He started singing new songs that reflected his life experiences, like "It Was a Very Good Year" and "That's Life." In 1965, he celebrated his 50th birthday with lots of attention, including magazine covers and TV specials. In 1966, he recorded a live album at the Sands with Count Basie and his band, which is still celebrated today. This album showed Sinatra at the top of his game, even if his stage banter sometimes showed his ego growing. Through all these ups and downs, Sinatra's resilience and ability to adapt kept him relevant in the ever-changing world of entertainment. His struggles and comebacks continue to be a part of his legendary status in American music. In the world of entertainment, Las Vegas was becoming the go-to place for live shows. By 1960, it was clear that Vegas was at the heart of America's live entertainment scene. This was an exciting time, full of change and new beginnings. One of the highlights of this time was the Rat Pack shows at the Sands Hotel. Think of the Rat Pack as a group of famous friends who entertained together. They were like the coolest crew in town, making people laugh and dance. This group, which included Frank Sinatra, was a big deal. They showed a different kind of fun compared to what was usually seen on stage. They smoked, drank, and told jokes, giving people a break from the serious world outside. Las Vegas was the perfect place for this kind of fun, where dreams and reality seemed to mix, but change was on the horizon. The Rat Pack's time at the Sands was coming to an end. This was a big moment, signaling the end of an era. Sinatra's eventual fallout with the Sands Hotel would lead to major shifts. The group that made Vegas famous was breaking up, and this would change the face of entertainment there. Las Vegas was about to open the door for new types of shows and performers. Around this time, Las Vegas was also becoming a major hub for live entertainment in the US. In 1960, things got even bigger. A new flight service started, making it easier for people from the East Coast to visit. This brought more tourists to Vegas. At the same time, an old hotel, the El Rancho Vegas, was destroyed by fire. This event symbolized the end of old Vegas and the start of something new. Television was another big factor changing Vegas. More and more American homes had TVs by 1960. While this meant some nightclubs lost their audience, it also meant Vegas could draw from a wider pool of talent. This included both established stars and new ones created by TV shows. Racial barriers were also starting to fall in Vegas. For a long time, African Americans faced discrimination in Vegas casinos and hotels, but by 1960, things were changing. A famous moment happened when the great singer Ella Fitzgerald was treated like a guest of honor at the Sands, something that wouldn't have happened before. This was a sign of progress, though it took more time for true equality to happen. Las Vegas in the early 1960s had several big hotels vying for the best performers. The Sands was a star, hosting not just the Rat Pack but other big names like Jerry Lewis and Danny Thomas. The Sahara was known for its comedians, while the Desert Inn attracted high rollers with its classy acts. The Riviera was famous for its showmanship, hosting Liberace and Debbie Reynolds. Each hotel had its own flair, making Las Vegas a city filled with entertainment options. Despite this competition, star salaries in Vegas remained stable. This was partly because stars often chose to stay loyal to their hosts rather than compete for higher pay. It was a time of balance between talent and business sense. As Las Vegas continued to grow, it was clear that the city was evolving. The old ways were giving way to new possibilities. With more tourists, better connections, and a shift away from racial segregation, Vegas was becoming a place where dreams could still be found, but in new and exciting ways. It was a time of transition where the city was figuring out what it would become, a place where entertainment knew no bounds.